Um, this is the concluding session, and the idea is to wrap up what we've been discussing for the past 2 days. The panelists who are up here with me are actually selected by Sodia, and as we get to each one, I will let them just reintroduce themselves in case you don't remember who they are. Everybody has been asked to speak for 3 minutes, which is plenty of time to sum up everything, and then we'll see where we are, and then I will wrap up the wrap-up. I was actually, Jessica sort of stole my thunder in a way, because as part of my wrap-up, I was going to present my careful synopsis of everything that has occurred over the past 2 days. But if you will indulge me, mine is a little bit more specific than yours. What I have gathered from our conversations is that we should have more live performance, which will take the form of processions in the street, all leading to the Industrial Palace. Inside the Industrial Palace will, of course, be conceptual installations made of models and costumes on mannequins. And then we will award and present an award for the exhibit least likely to provoke a conversation. With that, let me turn to Beth Weinstein.
I think I'm supposed to talk about architecture and space, but I think, as I mentioned the other day, there has been a paradigm shift, according to some people, that is what is more important is not what it is, but what it does. So I've, as you've probably noticed, I'm an obsessive-compulsive note-taker. So I've been doing a lot of doing, and I've then edited my listing. So I thought I would perform a slight, just a synopsis of my notes. Receiving, perceiving, experiencing, documenting, presenting, operating, radiating, spectating, mattering, authoring, charging, potentializing, awakening, gluing, holding, sharing, defining, scening, interdisciplining, performing, activating, spectating, sensing, sensibilizing, stating, mattering, constructing relations, gathering, transforming, participating, mobilizing, doing it together, moving, sensing, workshopping, encountering, risk-taking, staging and more staging, politicizing, opening, charging, shuttling, situating, resituating, desituating, celebrating, happening, betweening, behinding, withening, performing, sharing, responsibilizing, communing, planting, tracing, happening, attending, attentioning, losing control, embracing, increasing, diversifying, communicating, communitizing, communing, politicizing, poeticizing, heartening, gathering, workshopping, counterpointing, encountering, listening, opening, taking risks, taking time, taking responsibility.
I'm Sophie Jump. I'm a practitioner, and I recently completed a PhD, which was about theatre design history. And I've attended 6 PQs. I came first as a student in 1991. I've exhibited 4 times, and last time I came as an audience member or spectator and a workshop leader. And so for me, Prague has punctuated my career from the very beginning, and I see it very much as something that it kind of punctuates time for us all as practitioners. My impression over the last couple of days of Prague is as a kind of living organism that reflects what we do, responds to what we do, and points the way to potential futures for what we do. And it changes according to what we need it to be or what we want it to be. I think, you know, like Prague, this event has been really wonderful to be part of because it's a place for people to agree and disagree and argue, and that reflects the changing nature of what it is that we're doing. I really liked Sodja's description at the beginning of one of the strengths of Prague as being its chaos. And I think that reflects the kind of controlled chaos of making performance. Sometimes it's not very controlled, other times it's a bit more controlled. And I kind of wonder sometimes, is it possible to pin down what it is? But I think it's really important that we try to do that. And for me, PQ is giving us the opportunity every 4 years to kind of grapple with that. So I suppose some of the questions and thoughts over the last few days have been about who are we talking to, who are the audience, who are the spectators. You know, at the moment we're talking amongst ourselves, which is fantastic and very important, but there's also the public. What are we trying to say to them? So I suppose discourse is really vital, whether it's between us or between us and the public. And I think Prague creates an environment and has created an environment and could continue to create an environment that provides a space with that potential. We can't force people to have conversations, but we can provide opportunities for that to happen.
Hello. First time that I was here, it was in 1995, I think, as a student. Then I have come twice with performance in the street with our students from Untitled Chapter, and last year we were here bringing the exposition of Catalonia. I tell that because I have had the opportunity to see the PQ in different roles. Yeah? What I have been thinking after these 2 days, it's that scenographers, much often, I think that we are working for and not working with a project. That's important for me because, I can go a little bit back. I think that the 20th century, it has been the century of the director of the stage. I mean, the director has been the most important role in the 20th century. And I think it's because of that that scenographers are more used to work for than to work with. And we have to remember that from our activity through scenography, I think we are also writers and we are also dramaturgs with our work. Yeah? Another matter that happens is that the dark box, it's called like that, no? La caja negra? The black box, thank you. And also the drama plays written has bring to scenographers a great feel for our profession. But I would like to remember that it's not just our field. Our field of profession, it's really much more wide, ancho, wide. Eh? And I think one of the challenge for the PQ is to remember our wide field for activity, scenographer activity. I have heard many people discussing about if we have to perform inside or outside, if we have to communicate to the audience through installation or through models or through any kind of exhibition. And I think first I have the question why we make these questions excluding one to each other. It's one thing. And the other one, it's, it doesn't matter if we make installation or we make a really nice exhibition of models that can talk by themselves. I think the important thing is to generate expectation about our activity, our scenographer activity. I think that's all.
Okay, thank you.
It is, there are many things, of course, said, and the last day the word community stuck, and also combined with this confession in the beginning. So I'm also going to confess. I'm a member of this community since '91, when my teacher, Peter de Kimpe, who is quite known in this community, invited me as an excellent student to be part of the students section. And I was very happy he invited me here. This community has a common topic, which is also called topos. So that brought the thought in me that these last 2 days we worked on a topography, which is a precise description of a place or region. And, but it's also a graphic representation of this region. And it's also a description or an analysis of a structured entity showing the relations among its components. And it's also the surveying of the features of a place or region. Our region is called scenography, or sometimes something else, but we all know this scenography as a word. And we sometimes seem to live in different places, but all of us long for being invited at the party that's called PQ. I love the PQ for being a critical heart in the scenographic body I already described, and this critical is essential to me. Can we stop change is the second question that my colleague wrote down. I witness us being in the midst of this question here in our region called scenography and outside on the streets. We demand a lot of the PQ organization, a wish list between past and future. I think PQ is a powerful organization, but as a platform in Holland, I think and suggest we can do a lot ourselves in our own countries or regions, smaller regions, and we can offer the PQ our own qualities, expertise, and diversity by showing up. We can watch Europe and other parts of the world as examples for our future. Do we close up our borders, or do we invite and welcome others? Do we relate? I was more than happy to be welcome, to find a platform to show our exceptional scenographic qualities after 20 years of exclusion.
Well, I would just like to start by saying I know that I've expressed many criticisms and concerns, but I want to also add that I also have a love affair with the PQ, like our Serbian colleague described. I thought that was a beautiful way of describing it. And I did enjoy enormously 2015, and so I continue to look forward to what PQ has in store. My concern comes from a place that is also rooted in the Canadian situation, which is one where designers fight every day for recognition of their contribution to performance. For example, the Factory Theatre in Toronto, which is one of Canada's oldest theatres dedicated to the creation of new Canadian work, is coming to the end of what they called a naked season, which was a season with no design, basically. But of course, on one hand, that could have been very interesting as a concept if they had just done it with the lights, the work lights on, and the actors wearing their own clothes. But that's not what happened, of course. So the director made lighting design choices. The stage manager was sent out to buy props, and the director also was expected to go and buy costumes or whatever, pulled from stock. But then there was, of course, no quality control, no fittings, no craft behind what was happening. And it was called out in the Globe and Mail, our biggest newspaper. For the first time, someone actually said, this is a really big mistake. And so my concern is about making sure the PQ remains engaged with the professional scenography and theater design community, that it is not just about theory, but it is actually about looking at the work and the process of designers. And when I say that, I don't just mean models or more traditional processes, but that, to quote Abby Cohen, that we remember to keep the designer in the heart of the scene. To me, that is the most important thing that PQ has to remember.
Do you have anything you would like to say to each other?
I'm the worst in English, and then I want to say something. One of your last questions were related. It's important to add somebody, some other fields of creation, I understand, in the PQ. It was...
I don't know what you mean with other fields.
No, if PQ has to add other professionals, or has to add more than scenographers to the festival. I understood that. I just want to say that for me the important is to open the scenography activity more than think if we need, if it's coming people from fine arts or from technicians or from architecture, it doesn't matter. The important is the scenography activity.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would only add to that the kind of the criticality that you mentioned, that regardless of whether it's inside or outside, that there's thoughtfulness being brought to even the most conventional situations of how to make extraordinary use of a proscenium stage or making use of a space underneath a bridge on a boat, that we really think about what's out there, as well as what we bring to and introduce into the world with our bodies and the things that we make and the actions that we engage in.
To which I would like to add that the critical is for me very important for keeping it away from only being a showcase.
And this is probably following along the lines of Daniela's, let's add one more thing. But it goes back to the notion of performance space. In the last several decades at least, much contemporary art has moved into the realm of what we would call scenography. I think most particularly of somebody like James Turrell, who creates rooms with light. It is scenography, but of course he is creating a work of art. It is to be experienced by the observers, but it's not theater per se. We have been seeing more, as I mentioned yesterday, we have been seeing more attempts at installations by scenographers here. And I would love to see some way to get these two worlds talking more to each other. The people in the world of art, many of them have little knowledge of, perhaps little interest in what goes on in the theater. People in the theater sometimes don't really know what is going on in the wide reaches of the art world. But everybody is dealing, or so many of these people are dealing with space, they're dealing with light, they're dealing with color, they're dealing with imagery, and of course, with certain forms of visual art, we're dealing with live performers, creating environments, transforming architectural spaces, building architectural spaces. And it seems to me that without replicating the many existing art fairs, biennales, and so on that already exist around the world, that there might be some kind of a dialogue that could be established there. Another, just sort of an observation, is we sort of bookended these 2 days with me starting out by trashing iPhones, and then Chris followed up today with the notion of presenting things on screens. However, we live in a world of digital technology and a world of screens, all of which is designed. So it may not be an ideal form on which to show theater, although maybe some people will disagree with that, but there is a whole world out there of designing for those venues, ranging from film and television, obviously, but to all the things that are happening in the digital worlds. And those, as we move towards the future, cannot be overlooked. Somehow I think that needs to be included in some way in what we do. It's somehow be acknowledged. All of this risks opening it up to include everything, which becomes pointless and not physically possible. But just ideas to be tossed out there. I think we've spent plenty of time over the last 2 days going over many of these ideas. I'm not sure that there's too much point in asking for more questions and comments right now. But I would like to, therefore, shift slightly into my role as a theater historian. And in that sense, look forward, look at the present, and look to the future. I know from my own students that the past is quickly forgotten, that something that happened before they were born or before they were conscious oftentimes doesn't exist. People get forgotten. As has been brought out several times over the last 2 days, PQ has functioned because of the people involved in creating it and running it. So looking back, a name that some people here know well, many people may not. I thought I should mention Eva Soukupova, who over the first 20 years, I guess, of the PQ was responsible for running it and did an incredible tight wire act, working between the Communist Party and the needs of the PQ. Ultimately, after the Velvet Revolution, she had to step down from this position because of her association with the prior government, but she made PQ happen for several decades. Yarmila Gabrielova has been mentioned already. She too is no longer with us. But my first encounter with PQ, she was one of the first people that I met. An elegant, charming woman, always exquisitely dressed, spoke multiple languages, apparently fluently, and was able to make sure that everything ran smoothly under the most difficult of circumstances. A person who should have been here today but was called away because of a family emergency, Yaroslav Malina, who was the general commissioner from the 90s through 2003, who oversaw the transition from one era to the next, and was welcoming, encouraging for Sodia and Tomaszyczka for something like the heart of PQ. He was part of, to some extent, an older tradition, but always looking forward as he did and does in his painting and in his art. I also owe a personal thanks to him because he invited me to be on the jury in 1991, and I had been here before that, but this got me very deeply involved in PQ, which made PQ a second home for me. I've just been thinking that in my professional life as an educator, I spent a few years in exile outside of New York City and taught at other colleges, so I've lived several years in a few other places in the United States, but excluding those, I've spent more time in Prague than in any other city than New York. This is my second home. For the present, or looking to the more recent past and to the present, the two people the reason we are all here today, Sodia Latker and Daniela Parzyszkova. Sodia is a visionary and somebody who I've been in utter admiration of. She decides she wants to do something, and somehow she does it. She decides that she wants to get world-renowned artists, performers, directors, God knows what, and she goes after them, and most of them come. She kept making PQ larger and larger, changing its form, expanding it. Everything that we've been debating over these last 2 days about should it be this, should it be that, is all because of things that Sodia introduced to the PQ. She introduced the this and the that. But she could not have done that, I think, without Daniela. Daniela is more than an administrator, although she is the most magnificent one I have ever encountered. But she too is an artist, a visionary, who helped Sodia to achieve these visions. During my time as General Commissioner in 2007, and for the years prior to that, I spent a lot of time in the office at the Theater Institute. And watching Daniela, I was envious. I wished that in my role as an administrator at the university and stuff, that I could be as outwardly calm. I, of course, got to see her be angry when she would hang up the phone. Probably she was doing that with me too when I wasn't there. But remember, Prague is in this time zone, but she was dealing with at least 20 of the other 24 time zones. I don't think there was anybody coming from the middle of the Pacific, but other than that, she was basically round the clock dealing with problems, dealing with issues. Everybody from invited guests to curators to people who just wanted to be involved with PQ felt that they were the center of the world and therefore needed Daniela's time. And she was always polite, helpful, and made everything work out. And she, like Jarmila, could speak several languages, is elegant, and has made the PQ run incredibly smoothly. And when you think of just the geographical territory that PQ has colonized, it's taken over Prague with multiple buildings, multiple venues, incredible numbers of events which involve hundreds, thousands of people as performers, participants, support staff, and then you add the tens of thousands of spectators, and of course the inevitable budgets that go with all of this. And Daniela was doing that with help, of course, in the office, but without her, it would not have functioned. And Marketa, I hope you find somebody half as good as Daniela, or you're going to have a hell of a job. So at any rate, I would like to take this opportunity to honor and thank both Sodia and Daniela for the incredible job they have done over the last several PQs.
also want to thank my commissioners for 2015, Abby, Serge, Jessica, Simon, Rebecca is still somewhere here. And I'm sure you don't want to say anything anymore, so I'm just going to say a few last things. All of the beautiful presentations are going to be published in a publication. I hope I'll do it before the end of the year, so I need all the presenters to send the papers before the end of April. Also, I need to thank my team. This symposium ran like a clock, you must admit. And I want to thank Misha over there, who's taking Daniela's job. She's going to be important for you. Jan Mocek, I need him to wave, he's there in the dark. Anna Jose, she's maybe breastfeeding, or maybe she's here, she's right here. And I need to ask, and Martin Bernatek for helping me with the... I hope you're all coming to the party. You have the invitation and the map in the bag. There's no food there, so please eat on your way there, but there's lots of drinks. And I think me and Daniela are now going to officially give mic to Marketa, and she's going to take you into the future.
Thank you for the official handover of the mic. It's a little frightening, I do have to admit. Those are very big shoes to fill, clearly, as Arnold already said. And I just wanted to add one thing to what you already covered so much, and I wanted to say some of that. But there's one bit that I want to add to what Arnold already said, and that is that there was a time when a person who was running PQ had to step down because he had another work. And all of a sudden there's a vacuum. There's time when PQ was in a pause in this liminal time, and it was unclear as to where it's going to go. And so the word I would like to mention is courage, because Sonia and Daniela definitely had an enormous amount of courage, because they stepped up and decided that it's going to be the two of them who are going to take on this incredible responsibility and figure out what to do next. And they did. And they took it, they ran with it, and they had incredible amount of courage. So thank you for your courage. That would be something I would like to say. And I hope I'll have enough courage to keep going forward. And I already do have a person, Misha, who's sitting up there, who will be helping me, just like Daniela did with Sonia. So hopefully, of course it will be a tough job, but hopefully we have to take it, do it, run forward, and do the best we can. Thank you.